Okay, so everybody, we're going to learn a very interesting concept today.
Okay.
We
Let's
ready?
get the party rolling.
Let's get the party rolling. I agree with you. The Torah is a fascinating book, as you all know. And we're going to see something fascinating in this week's Parsha. So the class starts off, Mishpatim, and starts off on page, I believe, 85, 86. So the question that the class comes to answer today, the class was called Jewish prepping, taking time to invest in the Jewish experience, and the concept, the importance of preparation that the Torah has. What's called in halacha, in the Torah, it's called achana lemitzvah, the preparation of a mitzvah, to prepare for a mitzvah. That is maybe just as important as the mitzvah itself. The Gemara says, achana mitzvah. The preparation for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. Because it's important to want to prepare for a mitzvah. Why? Why is it so important? Why does do the mitzvah? So the question that this is going to answer the general question that we have. And that is that we're taught, especially in Chassidut, that the concept of the spirituality of a mitzvah, every mitzvah, self-understood, has a spiritual context to it. And we learn in Chassidut that the spiritual concept is the soul of the mitzvah, is the neshama, is the soul of the mitzvah. The real entity of the mitzvah is the spiritual aspect, the unity of God, the revelation of God, all these expressions that we learn in Chassidus. But the problem is, many of us, we don't have a feeling to a mitzvah. We don't get the feeling. We don't get the neshama. And it's a problem, right? Because if we get the neshama to a mitzvah, we would do a mitzvah easier. But for some reason, we don't get the neshama, and therefore many of us would say, forget about the spiritual. You're looking for the spiritual side. It gets disappointing because we don't just do the mitzvah. Forget about the soul of the mitzvah. Forget about the spirituality in the mitzvah. Do the mitzvah. God says, do the mitzvah, do the mitzvah. Many Jews have that feeling. Why look for the soul of the mitzvah when maybe it'll be harder for us to find the soul of the mitzvah? Does God says so? It's good to be king. It's good to be God. That's it. Understand is something else. I'm talking about. I can understand something, but I don't want to do it either. I still don't get I understand. God says so. I can come to the conclusion. It's good to be God. God is my commander in chief. He's my creator. What, when your parents told you something or you tell your children you have to understand everything? I'm the parent. You got to listen to me. That should make all sense in the world. To every child, I'm the parent. And I'm running the house. This is my house. You don't want to follow the rules? The door is available always. So you can leave the house. We're not looking for that. The Abish is looking that we should have that our understanding should bring a spiritual feeling to the mitzvah, and we struggle with that. We struggle with that. So here we're going to give an answer to this concept. Maybe we'll try to give an answer to this concept. It's not a simple concept. It's not a simple issue. So first, we'll establish the fact that the Eibishter wants that. The Eibishter wants the concept of the emotion, of the heart, of the desire. The Eibishter wants that. And we see that in a statement of Isaiah. It says, the prophet Isaiah says, and God said, because this people approaches with their mouth and with their lips, they honor me, but with their heart, they draw far away from me. So you guys are not, you're telling me nice things. You're repeating nice words. You're saying wonderful things, but don't really mean it. You don't really mean it. And the fear for me has become a social obligation. Learned by rote. So this is Isaiah. We're talking about thousands of years ago. That Isaiah tells Jews, you know what God says? I'm not interested in lip service. It's wonderful. You're saying nice things, and you tell me I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. It's beautiful. But where's your heart? Do you really feel that I'm so great and I'm so wonderful and I'm so beautiful? Do you really have that? Are you really mean it? So are you just giving me lip service, or are you giving me heart service? So he's rebuking them. Isaiah is rebuking them. I'm sure we all feel the same a little bit, right? Are we giving lip service, or do we really mean it? Do we have true heart behind it? In text number 1b, it says the same thing. For people approach me to draw near to me with words of their mouths and to honor me with their lips, but they don't speak from the heart, for they are distant, their hearts from me. And the verse says in Psalms, we say in Psalms, and 2a, Vayiftachu b'fiyem b'shen yachzru lei. Again, David HaMelech says, even before Isaiah, David HaMelech said, they deceived me with their speech and lied to him with their words. Their hearts are inconsistent towards him, and they are untrue to his covenant. What is the meaning of Vayiftu, that they deceived him? How can they deceive God?
You were right.
Well, I was right in English. That's amazing. They deceived him. She said, I'm sorry, David Alcher. So does David says, there are no wholeheartedness. They only sought to flatter God with their mouths, and they deceive him with their tongues. It's true. It's not scary. It's true.
Yeah,
That's it. We got to be honest. Because the heart is not easy. The tongue is easy. The heart is a whole different world. It's a whole different world. Cheapest talk, they say in this one. Cheapest talk. I can say whatever I want. So I flatter you, and then you find out later I spoke against you. Right? We're hurt in that kind of situations. Right? People talk nice to you, and then you find out that they didn't talk so nice to you in front of you when you were not in front of them. So it's all good talk. And that's the way it is. It's a struggle. Libam, David out to the Mitzudas David says, Libam, Ava Libam, Lo Yonachem Hashem, the hearts were not aligned with God. And this is a problem. You see, this problem of the heart and the mind didn't start last week. It started thousands and thousands of years ago. And that's why the Eibishter says, "V'ahavta Hashem b'chol levavcha." You say in the Shema, you don't love me with your mouth, love me with your heart. B'chol levavcha, v'ahavta Hashem. You should love God b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, b'chol meidecha, with everything you have. Be real. Why are people fake? Why is it hard for us to be real? And the truth is, it is hard for us to be real. Because not everything we do in life is because we feel for it. We do it because we have to do it. Lots of things. Right? Not everything do we have a true geschmack, a true delight, a true love to it, and we're pushing excited and we're all enthralled. No, we're not. We're not. We do it because we have to do it. You know what? Better you do it because you have to do it than don't do it. But really, is that what life is all about? That you do things because you have to do it, and you don't do things because you want to do it, you have a love to do it, you're enjoying to do it. That's what people go through life. And surely that's going to be my Jewish life. My Jewish life is going to be out of rote, out of necessity, out of obligation, no heart in it, just obligating myself to do something out of fear of God, out of fear of I don't know what, the fear of the unknown. Like the Gemara says, People talk about the spiritual worlds, Gan Eden, Gehenna. Did anybody ever come back and tell anybody? Did you get a message? Like this is but there's a problem. Imagine if you got a message for your parents. Gan Eden, they're enjoying it. I was okay, I got the message. I'm not getting no messages. Nobody's sending me messages. I am always enthralled by people telling me they do get messages. I say, what am I, a schlepper or something? Well, why don't I get any kind of a message? I create my own message. I feel like I'm getting, but I'm not. Nobody came to me. Not my mother, not my father, not my baba, my zayde. Well, they should come and tell me. Give me a little bit of preview.
You have dreams?
Not yeah, sure, I dream about them, but not they don't come tell me. Listen, I'm telling you, I have dreams in context of situations that happened in the past. I always meet my father at the Rebbe's Farbrengen for some reason. We always meeting at the, because that was maybe Farbrengen up there. I don't know. No, I would like him to tell me what's happening, how was today, what did he do yesterday. Get some information. Let's get some information. So, tell us what's happening. How's the food? Get some information. There's no information. Okay, next. All the information is in the books. I never got a direct. I'm going to dream about tonight. Okay, here we go. I'll tell you tomorrow my dream. So there's a great gap. We all know there's a great gap between the heart and the mind. As close as they are in my body, my mind and my heart are pretty close. There's a great gap in between them. And it doesn't, and self-understood over here, this sikha, this teaching is about between us and God. It doesn't, doesn't talk about this gap is between humanity too, between people, and everybody talks a good talk, but nobody, walks the walk. So, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this? So the Rebbe says maybe, not maybe, for sure. The Rebbe doesn't say maybes, no maybes by the Rebbe. So we learned something fascinating in this week's Parsha. We'll come back to the answer to this question, but first learn something aspect in this week's Parsha. We find something at the end of the Parsha, all at the end of the Parsha. Let's go in the sequence of events. Like last week we had Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. And then from Matan Torah, we went to this week's portion, which is the laws, right? After the giving of the Torah, what did God gave the Torah? He gave the Jewish people the laws. And that's why this Parsha makes sense. Mishpatim, and these are the laws. And the Torah talks a lot of laws, fascinating laws in the Torah. And then at the end of the Parsha, we're going to come to these 4 verses. That's suddenly at the end of the portion. We didn't even read it in Chitas yet. It's going to be in the next 2 days. We suddenly have something else. Totally, the Torah seemingly goes it goes back, something back. It goes to something that happened before the giving of the Torah, and therefore brings an argument of the sages. So let's look in chapter 24. Chapter 24, this week's Parsha, is in the end of the Parsha. It says as follows. You would think, well, like, what are these 4 verses? You read the verses, you'll see openly that it's a problem with these verses. And to Moshe said, well, Moshe Amar, Alei, come up to God. Ata va'aran achicha, you and Aaron and Nadav of you, v'shim ziknei aretz, and the 70 elders of Israel, v'shtachavisim erachav, and they should prostrate themselves from afar. V'nigash Moshe levade, and Moshe alone shall approach God. So this sounds like before the giving of the Torah. V'heim lo yigashu, and they shall not approach. And the people shall not ascend to him in the Mount Sinai. So Moshe came, Moshe, and Moshe came. Is called Divrei Hashem, verse number 3. And Moshe came and told the people all the words of God, Mishpatim, and all its commandments. And all the people answered in unison. And all the people answered in unison by Yemru, and they said, Kol advarim ashadir b'Hashem, whatever God commands, we will do. By Yishkav Moshe Divrei Hashem, And Moshe wrote these words of God. Vayashkim ba'boker, and he got up in the morning. Vayivim mizbeach tachas hahar, and he built an altar underneath the mountain. Shteim asa matzeves, and he put up 12 monuments for the 12 tribes of Israel. Oh, this is these 4 verses are problem in this end of this parsha. What is going on? Where did these 4 verses are thrown into this at the end of the parsha? Where does these 4 verses come? Where do they belong? Do they belong here? When did this happen? After the giving of the Torah. After the giving of the Torah. It sounds like it happened before the giving of the Torah.
How is it possible after when they say Avei Lahal?
Right? So it's before. But if it's before, what are the laws and the commandments that he wrote?
It's a
They didn't give any of
recounting.
the commandments.
Oh.
So what's going
recounting.
on over here? Before, after? So let's look at the Bible now. We're going to find many Purushim on this. It's a complex issue, complicated issue. The commentators, text number 4, the commentators disagree regarding when the events described here occurred. The sages of France asserted it occurred before the giving of the Torah, when Moshe separated the people, while the sages of Spain maintained that it happened after the giving of the Torah, as is chronologically brought in the Torah. So the question is, so that's the argument. I understand, according to the rabbis, after the giving of the Torah, even though what he put a monument, he put the monument before the giving of the Torah. It said maybe there are new monuments, but it makes sense. It was after the giving of the Torah because he wrote it down on a parchment. He wrote down what was given to him. Comes Rashi, and Rashi, who was from France. That's why you see the Bible divides between the sages of France and the sages of Spain. Rashi was from France, and he says, and to Moshe, God said, this portion was spoken prior to the 10 Commandments. Moshe was told on the 4th of Sivan to ascend. He did this before he just ascended.
So what it says, come up, you and Aaron and Nadine and Avihu. So.
Right? They did.
It says you, so were they halfway up the mountain?
Right, they were different boundaries. There was a boundary for Moshe, there was a boundary for Aaron, there was a boundary for Nadav Avi, his sons. There was a boundary for the 70 elders. There was a boundary for the Kohanim, who were the firstborn those days. There were different categories where they can stand. And Moshe Rabbeinu put markers. It says he put markers exactly where everybody can stand. The rest of the people need to stand over here behind these 12 altars that he put around the mountain, and they went step by step. So Rashi says these verses are in the beginning, as before not only before Mishpatim, they're in the beginning in the portion of Yisrael. They belong in a portion of Yisrael. Yeah, that's the Rashi. But then we have a problem. The problem is, if before the giving of the Torah, then the verses, though, it's a problem with the simple meaning of the verses. Because it says, he says, Kol Divrei Hashem, he told them all the words of God and the laws, and he wrote down. What do you give them? If it was before Matan Torah, what do you give them, right? So we have, according to Rashi, which we're going to go according to Rashi, because we're simple people, and Rashi explains the Parsha according to the simple people. So the question is, what do you do with the verses according to Rashi? So Rashi is bothered by that. He doesn't let you hanging. And Rashi says, as Kol Mishpatim, what are the ordinance that he gave them? He wrote down, these are the 7 Noahide laws. Okay? The keeping of the Shabbos that was given before the giving of the Torah. Honoring your father and mother that was given before the giving of the Torah. The red heifer. Those were all given in Mara. These were all given in one of their stops, their journey to Matan Torah, where they were bitter over the water, etc. Some explained they were bitter over not Torah, didn't have any Torah for so long, and they gave him these laws. So that's the meaning of the verse. These are the commandments he gave them. It's interesting. If you look at the verses itself, it says, "Vayit et kol divrei Hashem." He wrote down all these words. Okay, all these words, right? Kol ha'dvarim. So that's what Rashi says. Rashi also writes, and Moshe wrote. He wrote the mitzvahs from the beginning of Genesis until the giving of the Torah. So he wrote part of the Torah down, according to Rashi. He wrote all the story, the whole book of Genesis, from Bereshis until Parsha Yisrei, he already wrote down.
Wait, I'm confused. Are you saying that he wrote those before Matan Torah?
Right, so comes out Rashi, comes out. He wrote that before.
Okay.
He wrote this whole story down. He wrote the whole story. How do we know Bereshis, if not that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it down? This brings us to another argument. This is a famous argument in the Gemara. How is the Torah written? How is the Torah written? You have this beautiful Torah. Starts off in Genesis. Ends off with the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. Passing of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what the Torah ends off. Right? The 40th year of the desert. Starts off with Genesis, creation of the world. And it ends off. How was this Torah scroll written? So this is a machlekes in the Gemara, in the Masechta Gittin. We have an argument, two great sages. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, text number 6a. Rabbi Yechanan said, in the name of Rabbana, the Torah was given in sections, scroll by scroll. As it stated, then I said, behold, I come in the scroll of the book, it is written concerning me. So Rabbi Yechanan says, the Torah was written scroll by scroll. Then right before Moshe Rabbeinu's death, he took all these scrolls and he made it one book. And that's why you find later, before he dies, he says, Torah hazeh. He gave them this Torah. He said, now I'm passing away. I'm going to, certify it, seal it. This is the Torah. But already in the desert, they had scrolls. They were learning Torah. So as he learned, as God told him a commandment, he wrote it down. And they learned it. And then he got another commandment, he wrote it down. And they learned it. And it was scrolls by scrolls. It means that everybody had scrolls. They rewrote it. Every tribe, every community had scrolls. Comes Reish Lakish and says, no. The Torah was given complete and still, as it says, take this book of law. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah before he passed away. This is the argument. Was it given scroll by scroll and then united? Or was it given as one book? Rabbi Reish Lakish holds it was given as one book. This is a big argument.
I didn't know that Sheva Mitzvot now had Shabbat in it.
No, it didn't have Shabbat in it.
Well, that's what they say.
No, it says they were given 7 oil laws, then they were taught the Shabbos. Parah Adumah, not part of the 7 oil laws. Parah Adumah is not either. The red heifer is not either part of the 7 oil laws. So they were given the Kabbalah Savich V'Simcha not either part of the 7 oil laws. So they were given at Mara, they were reminded of the 7 Noahide laws and the laws of Shabbos and the laws of Kibbutz Avim and the laws of Parah Adumah.
Well, why is this important, Rabbi Bucket? Why do we
You'll
care
get
if
it
it's 4
soon.
book or
You'll
1
soon
book?
see.
Like
You'll
the
soon see.
Paraduma has nothing to do with anything,
It's part of Torah.
but why that one?
Because in essence, that's simple answer. Because in essence, they were ready to receive the Torah. They had to all learn the laws of purity.
How did he include those ones?
Oh, Rashi 555-1212. Call him up and he'll tell you exactly. Right. It's a long distance call. It might be expensive. No, that's not the right answer. I just said it. You gotta look. I don't know the answer. Look up the Gemara. You can look up the Parsha. He'll tell you why they were given those laws. I don't know if and why. So let's continue. We're still on a journey. Let's continue. So they were given either separate Megillot, separate sections, section by section, or they were given one entity, right? So Rashi explains, Torah was given section by section. When a portion was spoken to Moshe, he would write it down. At the end of 40 years, when all the portions were completed, he connected them with thread and sealed them, created the 5 books of Moses. It was given completely sealed. It was not written until the end of 40 years, after all the sections were spoken to him. Those that were spoken to him in the first and the second years were transmitted orally until he wrote it down. And that's what Rabbi Leish Lakish holds, that they were basically all given to him. They were all given to him section by section, but he was orally transmitted, and then it was later written down. Now, according to the problem is that according to Reish Lakish, that holds it was not written down, then we have a problem with the meaning of the Parsha. It says he did write it down. Right? It says in verse number 4 that he did write it down. By Yichtav Moshe. It says it openly in the verse. And Moshe wrote, it's called Divrei Hashem, all the words of God. What does Reish Lakish do with that verse? This is a big question. And they're going to explain, you'll understand why we're learning this pyramid to understand this concept. So therefore, Tosfos answers the question in text number 7. Torah was given complete and sealed. How could this be? Scripture states explicitly, and he took the book of the covenant and he read it in the ears of the people. Exodus 24, number 7. Rashi explains in his commentary there that it means the Genesis until that he wrote Genesis until that point. So if he wrote it, so he wrote the Torah. That's the question. The Rashba raises the same question, and here's the Rashba's answer of Shlomo ben Aderet. The Rashba lived in the 1200s. Even according to Reish Lakish, he says, he only meant that Moshe did not write every portion as it was spoken to him. Rather, he orally transmitted it in order until the completion of the Torah. But still, those sections that were necessary at the time, for whatever reason, were written down so they could be seen and learned in a written text. So the Rashba, his answer is, you're right. And generally, the Torah was not written down. But for whatever reason, there were certain sections that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. Because he wanted the Jews to learn the Torah at that present time. He didn't know, it's going to be 40 years later that he's going to, the Jews are going to be in the desert for 40 years. And if they're not going to have anything to learn, then how are they going to learn the Torah? It's going to be orally. Therefore, he wrote certain sections down. That's how the Rashba comes. The Maral Prague, Rabbi Yehuda Lowy, and says the following, text number 9. He explains it as follows, according to his interpretation. According to the opinion that maintains that the Torah was given complete and sealed, that its limit, that is limited to the Torah scroll as a whole. Over here, this wasn't about giving of the Torah. He comes and says, listen, according to the Shlakish, the writing of the Torah right over here is not about the Torah. And that's where we're going to come to understand that the Rabbi Yehuda Lowy, the Meralma Prague. And he comes and says, it's not the Torah that he wrote, but rather an independent book of covenants. He wrote the covenant that the Eibishter made with the Jewish people. As explained in the Medrash, indeed, later at the conclusion of 40 years, the entire Torah was recorded. So the Shlakish says, the Shlakish stays with the statement that the Eibishter Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the entire Torah after 40 years. What did he write before the 40 years? He wrote down the bris. He wrote the covenant that the Eibishter made with the Jewish people, and that the Jewish people made with God. Think about it. Would our allegiance to a notion that the Torah was given complete and sealed hold us back from writing out a scroll of a Saita? Of course not. The Torah tells you that you can write a scroll separately from the Torah, right? When it comes to the laws of a Saita, the Torah says you have to write the Torah on a separate piece of parchment. That's an independent mitzvah defined by writing those verses. Here as well, the mitzvah was defined by writing down these particular verses. If there was no explicit instruction from God to do so, and Moshe went ahead and wrote this scroll, it would indeed be troubling. But that wasn't the case. For God did give us such an instruction, and there's no question at all that Moshe Rabbeinu needed to write down this words of the covenant between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why did he need to do that? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu, according to the Meralma Prague, the Rebbe was a grandchild of the Meralma Prague, great-great-grandchild of the Meralma Prague. So the idea of the treaty, the Rebbe writes in text number 10, is to fortify the connection bond between the two parties entering into a treaty, which in our case are God and the Jewish people. Through the giving of the Torah, we're able to connect to God. As such, in the light of Rashi's opinion that the treaty was before the giving of the Torah, the covenant was regarding whatever God had instructed the Jewish people beforehand. The purpose of this treaty was the preparation and introduction to the giving of the Torah. Now we come to the circle. Now we come to the beginning. We just came to the beginning. We went to this whole journey to come to the teaching of the Meralma Prague. That in essence, that he wrote a special, not part of the Torah. He wrote a special document that emphasized the commitment between a Yid and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the commitment that we have between us and God. That in this commitment, that's why it says a kol Mishpatim, because in this commitment has within it all the commandments. Because the commitment that we are committed, that we make a commitment, that's why they said Nasa v'nishma. Now I understand why the Jewish people said we will do and we will listen. Because they didn't know what they were supposed to do. They were not told what they were supposed to do. Nevertheless, they said, we'll do whatever we're told to do. Doesn't make a difference what they're going to tell us to do. Why? Because we're committed. We're making a commitment. It's like a marriage. A marriage is a commitment. What's going to happen after the commitment? Life. Everything that's going to happen after the commitment. We should always remember the commitment. No, not stuck. Maybe to give you over the leeway out. So you always should remember the commitment. The commitment. Our relationship is based on a commitment. And once your relationship is based on a bris, a commitment, a covenant, we make a covenant with each other, then whatever, I don't have to spell out what that covenant is. I don't have to spell out, what the details. Because life is going to be the details. Cannot spell out every detail that's going to happen. It'll be impossible. It'll be an extremely long document, and you'll have a lot of lawyers involved in this document. Therefore, what's important is that we are committed. The Eibishter, Moshe Rabbeinu, understood that even before the giving of the Torah, what's important is their commitment. And that's why he writes it now, in middle. Because even in middle, all these laws, right? Now you see all these laws, right? Oy vey, right? All these laws, intricate laws and details, and how you have to overcome your own emotions, how God wants you to not to love your enemy, to all these things, right? Then you realize, wow, this is more than a commitment. This is real. This is real work.
Well, people who get married should all be committed.
We all be committed. We should remember the commitment. Don't try to make trouble over here.
So, Rabbi, I'm a little confused.
Yes.
What was actually contained in this book of the covenant? Was it the Torah from Genesis to Yitro?
Again,
Or we don't know?
we don't know.
Okay. All right.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it was a covenant that it says the Eibishter made a covenant at Matan Torah with the Jewish nation.
Okay.
So there was a covenant that was established between the Jews and God and the Jewish people.
Okay.
With this covenant that the Jewish people said Nasa v'nishma, whatever. I'm not sure exactly what that covenant was.
Okay.
Not written.
Okay.
But this was a covenant. We came to a commitment, right? So the Eibishter wanted to know what, right? The Eibishter, God, we know that in last week's Parsha, the Eibishter wanted to know, are the Jews committed? Are they on board? You know what I mean? They're on board on this aspect, on this relationship. So first, we gotta commit. Again, according to Jewish law, we don't live with each other before we get married. We start living with each other after we get married. Why? Because you should first commit to each other. You understand? You first should commit to each other. You really know how it's gonna work out later on as you're gonna live with each other. You're not 100% sure how it's gonna work out. and hopefully it's gonna work out for 60, 70, 80, 90 years. So it's a lifetime. No, but that's the beauty. Because our commitment is not based, on this and on that, on the other. Our commitment is based on above understanding, on something that's above comprehension. That is for sure, and that's the beauty. That is the beauty. That's not the negative. Because you should, when you come into a stumbling situation, you should always go on the commitment. We're committed. We can have an issue, we can have a struggle, but we never forget our commitment. We never forget our bris. We made a covenant together. We made this covenant under this chuppah. We made this covenant that we are bound, so bound, not only with not only I said to a chas and kala, you can go to the justice of the peace and get married in 2 seconds. The Chazal, the rabbis created this whole scenery, with a chuppah and a ksubah and going around, and the rabbi and the cup of wine and a agatsa maisa takes 25 minutes. The rabbi talks long; it'll take you longer. But it takes longer because it's a covenant. This is not just two people saying, no, this is serious stuff. This is a serious commitment. You're committed. You're going to be committed to, you're making a bris, you're making a covenant with one another that for a lifetime, hopefully, a binyan adayad, that whatever comes, whatever happens, we're gonna be connected with one another. We're not gonna let it break us. We're not gonna let it overtake us. The Yidden made a commitment at Matan Torah that's lasting for thousands of years. Lasting for thousands of years. Think about it. A commitment that our great-great-great-grandfathers did at Matan Torah, and we're still holding the same Torah. We are surely committed. We are committed by soul and body. It is. It's truly wonderful. It's truly a beautiful concept. The truth is, it's a beautiful concept by marriage too. It is the truth of a beautiful concept because you say you make a commitment under the chuppah, and Baruch Hashem, if you're connected by that commitment, then things come your way, good and bad, and struggles happen, and you still stay committed to the marriage.
Rabbi,
Why? Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the Torah it says, "Vayikach sefer habrit,
Right.
vayikra beoznei ha'am." He
Correct.
took the covenant. But Rashi said the covenant is really from the Sefer Bereshit ad Matan Torah and the mitzvot b'Mara.
Right. So the Rebbe writes so the Rebbe writes, according to the Rambam Prag, that was like whatever, because according to the Shlokish, he didn't write it down. So we have to know what exactly that Sefer Bris of Bereshis till the thing was. What was exactly the meaning of Rashi that he wrote? Did he write the whole Parshas? Bereshis, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayelech, Haisara. According to the Shlokish, he didn't do that. So the covenant was, in essence, he wrote, look what happened from the beginning till today. This is your covenant. The Eibishter created the world. And everything that Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov and everything that, all for this covenant. It all came down for this Matan Torah. The whole creation and all that happened from the beginning until today, all happened for this situation. What's happening right now. And this is a new covenant. The Eibishter made a covenant with Noah. The Eibishter made a covenant with Avraham Avinu. The Eibishter made a covenant with Yitzchak, and he made a covenant with Yaakov. Now Moshe Rabbeinu says, all these covenants, all this whole thing from Bereshis to Noah was, or from Bereshis to Matan Torah, all was to create this covenant. All was to create this new covenant between him and us. And we should remember this covenant.
Which we don't have.
Again, the Menalmi Pag is not arguing with Rashi. He's just explaining Rashi. That it was not Bereshis the way we read Bereshis Noach Lech Lecha Vayera, according to the Shlokish. It was a concept of this covenant. It was written in an aspect of a covenant between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that covenant is not the Torah that we have.
So we don't have it.
We don't have it. We have to. The Eibishter says when Mashiach comes, he'll write a new covenant.
Amen.
That happened now. But instead, so the Rebbe is going on the Menalmi Prague explanation of the concept. The Menalmi doesn't argue with Rashi. They were actually, the Menalmi Prague comes from Rashi. But he's a grandson of Rashi, great grandson of Rashi. So the Menalmi Prague is explaining Rashi, according to the Shlokish, that he wrote this covenant, this new bris based on the other brises that the Eibishter made with Adam and Rishon, with Noach, and etc., etc. The Rebbe just wants to explain what is the importance of this covenant, and why did he write down this covenant? What is important of this bris? And the answer is because that's the achana. That's the achana, the remembrance of a covenant. before we as a yid, we need to think about not just the doing the mitzvah, to realize that we're doing the mitzvah because of a covenant, because of a bris that the Eibishter made between us and him. Understand? So simply, you should need to sit down for a second and think before you do a mitzvah. And that's why actually the Chazal asked you to say a bracha before the mitzvah. Pasha to think a second before you do the mitzvah. Why are you doing the mitzvah? And why are you doing the mitzvah? Because it's a covenant. There's a bris. That covenant stands until Mashiach comes. This covenant that was given to Moshe Rabbeinu before Matan Torah is the same covenant that stands till today. So therefore, text number 11, the importance of this preparation. It's necessary to prepare in one's mind before performing any mitzvah, as well as before uttering any blessing, especially before mentioning the revered name of God. If we were to perform such acts suddenly, without prior intention, the act would be invalidated due to the missing intention, which is like a body without a soul. God's statement through the prophets Isaiah, as well as known because the people approach me with their fear of me, has become social obligation, learned by rote. So one must invest emotional energy before performing any mitzvah and before every prayer and blessing. What is the commandment? What is the reason for it? How and what manner should I perform it? One should prepare and arouse their souls to perform it in awe, love, and great joy in such a way that a mitzvah will arise before God as a pleasing way. And therefore, text number 12, the Tva writes, the reason why our sages stated that one should recite a blessing before performing a mitzvah is to firstly sanctify ourselves in this blessing. Baruch atah shekedishanu. That's the covenant. The covenant is, the Eibusha says, I'm going to sanctify you. And that's the bracha. This way it becomes demonstratively evident that we're performing a mitzvah because of God's command, because of this covenant, because of this kedusha. So therefore, for example, this is interesting, you're obligated to build a sukkah. You should build a sukkah. And even if somebody builds your sukkah, you should have a part in the building of the sukkah. You should make your own lulav nesek. So too, this month, tonight is a Chodesh Adar. Mishenichnas Adar marbin besimcha. What do you mean? Why Mishenichnas Adar marbin besimcha? The simcha is on Purim. That's going to be in a month and a half now, because it's 2 others. But in a regular Adar, it's going to be 14 days from now. It's supposed to be to joyous till the second month, the whole 2 months, 60 days. But why you start? Because you have to prepare yourself to be joyful. It's a mitzvah on Purim, but v'shenichnas adar, right now, start getting in the mode of joy. You can't become joyful in a second. Start preparing joy. It's not true joy. What comes easy goes easy. No, because if you're real joyful, if you could always want to be joyful, you're looking for joy, right? People that are looking for joy and want to be joyful will because they're in the mode of joy. And even though when they're sad, they're looking for the joy. And something that will come joyful in this situation, they'll flip in a second. They'll become, because then they're in the mode of joy. The truth is, the Eibishter made a covenant with Jewish people, and therefore, we can flip in a second. Right? If you are in a deep relationship with somebody, even if you have a problem with them, a deep problem, you can change in a second. And we do change in a second. We change in a second. We had a big fight. Now we're back in happy. How did it happen in a second? Because we're in the covenant, we're in the commitment of being happy. Not always can we be happy, but if we're in the commitment of being happy, so even when we're not happy, it's easily changeable. It's my phone. It's easily transformable. Why? Because you're in the commitment. When we're in the commitment of God, then it's even if we go off track, we easily come back. Because it's not something new to us. We made a commitment. So therefore we see in the Jerusalem Talmud it says, we're making a sukkah, recite the blessing, blessed are you who commanded us to make the sukkah. When ascending a lulav, recite the blessing, blessed are you who commanded us to make the lulav. We don't do that. We don't make the bracha. The Yishalmi, we don't, that's not the halacha. According to the Talmud, the Yishalmi, we do that. The Bavli disagrees, and that's why we go to the halacha like the Bavli. Because we don't make a bracha in a chanel mitzvah. Because why wouldn't you make a bracha? Why wouldn't you make a bracha? Because, in a way, Chassidus says, the chanel mitzvah is higher than the mitzvah because it stays forever. The mitzvah is for the moment. You make a bracha on the moment. The chana is going to keep that mitzvah relevant after you do the mitzvah. Because if you do the mitzvah because of the preparation, then that mitzvah goes on. If you did the mitzvah because you had to do it, so when you get over it, you get over it. You did the mitzvah, you had to do it. Thank God it's over. If I had the preparation to the mitzvah, and I thought about the commitment that I have to the Eibishter, now the mitzvah will last, because I enjoyed the mitzvah. It was not just I did it because out of necessity, I did it because I enjoyed it. So in essence, if we would think about the mitzvah, if we contemplate about the mitzvah, we would have greater enjoyment. And this mitzvah would last. Now, l'chayda, seemingly this concept was a revolutionary concept. What I told you right now was it's a revolutionary concept. Because in general, we say mitzvahs eitzich kavana, mitzvahs don't need to have any intention. We say zrizin magdim ala mitzvah. There's a famous statement in the Gemara that you should be alacrity and do a mitzvah quickly. Don't procrastinate. Do it as fast as you can. We learned that from Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was asked to do a mitzvah. He got up in the morning. So there was there are a group of people. There were a group in the house history. He said, "Just do the mitzvah." Bingo. Came the Chassidim. Chassidim changed this whole concept. Chassidim of the generations of past, and they said, "Relax, right? Don't wake up in the morning and run and daven. Get up in the morning, learn Torah for a couple hours, go to the mikveh, learn Torah, sing a niggin, and then daven." This was a great debate. What do we mean? Get up in the morning, daven, the mitzvah to daven. No, we need to prepare ourselves. We gotta go daven. We need to prepare ourselves. We gotta go to why we're doing it, right? Because we want to do it differently. We don't just want to do the mitzvah because it should be done. You're right. The mitzvah should be done, but if we can bring the soul of the mitzvah, we can bring the excitement of the mitzvah. It's worth the wait. If you're procrastinating not to do the mitzvah, you're drinking coffee and reading a paper or whatever, then do the mitzvah. I agree with you. I'll agree, do the mitzvah. But over here, you're going to learn a little bit before the mitzvah. And you're going to understand something before the mitzvah. Then it's worth it to wait.
It's like preparing for Shabbat, Rabbi.
Preparing for anything. So look at the Rab Shimon Sefer, who pushed this concept. Also, Shimon Sefer was the family of the Geder family, Sam Sefer. The Talmud relates in the narrations of the past that the pious would prepare an entire hour before prayers. If that was the case back then, see, he's writing in the 1800s. If that was the case back then, certainly in current times, when our emotional capacity is greatly diminished, now forget about this, he wrote in the 1800s. The more diminished. When our emotional capacity is greatly diminished, we must take time before every mitzvah to arouse our hearts towards God. After all, every mitzvah requires an emotional investment. There have been some rabble-rousers in our community who have raised the alarm about my practice of delaying mitzvahs of milah. He was circumcised. He was a male. They're up to no good, and they certainly do not have any holy intentions in mind. I made an official inquiry with the elders of our community, and they answered that there's obviously no Allah concern vice versa notion. Make sure the mitzvah as early as possible, as soon as you see these words. Because I'm not trying to procrastinate doing the mitzvah. It's not my agenda. I'm trying to get in the mood, in the emotional mood of doing the mitzvah. I want to do the mitzvah of milah, which I'm going to do. I'm a moyel. I want to simply do it with emotions. I want to do the mitzvah with neshama. And therefore, it's not procrastinating. It's actually it's actually doing the mitzvah on time. Because the mitzvah, I want to do a mitzvah with my emotions, and therefore I'm doing it on time. I'm doing it when I'm emotionally involved in this mitzvah. To silence all distance, I figured that I would inquire after the matter with great people of the generation. So he wrote to Rav Eger, Shimon Eger. He wrote this question, and Rav Shimon Sefer answers. I received your letter yesterday on Shabbos. I have rushed today to answer and remove any anguish from your pure heart. Yes, it is true. Anyone who delays a mitzvah, so to perform it more properly, is to be praised and is considered to be the earliest, and that's considered the earliest. And performing with mitzvah with alacrity, that's the way, maybe that is alacrity. And that's why he brought in the Mechilta, it says, God said to them, now you have tied and knotted the ropes, bound fast. Tomorrow, come accept upon yourself all of the commandments. That's the beauty. Today you made the commitment. Tomorrow we receive the Torah. That's the bris. Today you made the commitment. Tomorrow you'll receive the Torah. Wow. And in essence, that's the way the Rebbe explains the Rama Prague. The beautiful thing that the Torah puts it exactly in the middle over here. And then Rashi comes, it says it before. It's not a chronological order. Because it doesn't make a difference whenever you come to a mitzvah. Always go back to the bris. Always go back to kavana, to the achana, the preparation of why you're doing the mitzvah. Always go back to the reason. And the reason is because the Eibishter says, with this mitzvah I'm bonded with you. With this mitzvah I become bonded with you. With this mitzvah I made a covenant with you. These are the mitzvahs that keep this covenant. And if we would always go back to that covenant, the bris, which the Eibishter wrote with the Jewish people before Matan Torah, even though it's written the story in middle after Matan Torah, it's written not chronologically in order, it's written in the book of Mishpatim, at the end of the book of Mishpatim, to tell us it doesn't make a difference where you are in the doing of mitzvahs, so where you are in the service of God. Always remember, when you have a struggle with a mitzvah, it's because you had lack of preparation. You have lack of meditation a little bit, a lack of concentration. And we all should be able to, before we do a mitzvah, not take long, to think about this covenant that the Eibishter did with Am Yisrael. That the Eibishter says, I created the whole world from the beginning of creation. And all the things that happened from beginning of creation, he went through the whole book of Genesis, and you went through the majority of the book of Exodus, Galus, Mitzrayim, all this. Why did Eibishter do all this? Is all that he gave us Matan Torah. And so it continues. The Eibishter continues all this, all creation, and the pharaohs, and the gullus, and the troubles, and all these headaches, is all because he made a covenant with the Jewish people. He made a bris. He made a covenant with the Jewish people. And that covenant that doesn't make a difference. What's happening around you doesn't make a difference. All the situation of the world, it's all that you should do this mitzvah. That's the beauty of a mitzvah, my friends. Every one of us that does a mitzvah today, and you can do a lot of mitzvahs yet today. Any mitzvah you do today is pashut. You're bringing the covenant of God, the connection of God and the Jewish people, the connection of God to the world. The purpose of creation, which God wanted in this world, is every mitzvah that you're going to do today. And if you would understand that, and you would comprehend that, and you would go back to that, you're putting the neshama, not only you're doing the mitzvah, but you push it, you're simply bringing the neshama to the mitzvah. So I hope and pray that every mitzvah you do today, and from now on, bring the neshama, bring the soul to the mitzvah. Bring the covenant, bring God to the mitzvah. Not only do it because you have to do it because the beauty of it, you're creating a relationship between the world, between yourself and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no greater creation, no greater unity in the world but doing this mitzvah. What a beautiful simcha. I hope I did a good job. God bless you all. And
Great.
we should only continue
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you, Rabbi.